Hi, I'm Neil Nobel, editor-at-large of the Prickly Pear, and welcome to the Cactus Patch. Our guest today is Jim O'Connor, and our second follow-up interview with Jim. Jim, thanks again for the time you're spending with us.
Always.
Our first segment, we talked a lot about the goings-on at the Corporation Commission. Now I'd like you to take your considerable expertise and look at the political scene in Arizona and give us your opinions and views of where we are.
Thank you, Neil, for opening Pandora's box here this afternoon for this discussion. First, I'd like to tell you about some of the good to great news that's happening within the ranks of the Republican Party. We were blessed to have had a man by the name of Craig Berland, Berland, in late December of last year, agree to run for Maricopa County chairman. And as the county party chairman, he oversees the 20 of our state's 30 legislative districts and the Republican committees in each of those districts. The way the party is structured, the precinct committeemen, the volunteer members of the party that ultimately get elected once every 2 years by their registered Republican voters in their neighborhoods. Craig runs, or every county party chair runs a division of districts. In the outer counties, they don't break them up. Other than Pima, they don't break them up in legislative districts. They just divide the county. For example, I think up in Mojave, they've got 5 different districts. Down in Pinell, they may have 3. And then Pima County is big, like not quite as big as Maricopa, but it's got enough to have several legislative districts comprising its territory. And each of the LDs will have its own district chairman or chairwoman. But Craig, all of the precinct committeemen in the districts are also precinct committeemen of the county. So think of the county chairman as commanding generals of their troops, of their ground troops. And these are the ones who volunteer time, talent, and treasure in the party year in and year out. They're working and learning and educating themselves and others about political things in between 4-year gubernatorial or 4-year presidential election cycles. These are the people that run the ground game, do the volunteering at polls, put on political events so voters get to meet candidates all year long and throughout the year. Craig has set up a very aggressive funding plan. For the first time in Arizona's history, Maricopa County is scheduled and planning to raise $5 million as a county party to support school board races throughout the county, city council races throughout the county, legislative districts throughout the county. And I mentioned earlier, within Maricopa, there are 20 legislative districts. So that's an opportunity to influence and impact who's elected in 20 Senate seats in our Senate, in our 30-member Senate. So that's big. And the double that for the House of Representative members. There'd be 40, right, representing those 20. So he's got people delegated who serve on the county board with him. It's basically a 10-member board, 5 officers, chairman, first and second vice, secretary, treasurer, 5 members at large that represent different parts of the county, and then the 20 legislative district chairmen, and they call that grouping the Executive Guidance Council of the Maricopa County Republican Committee. So the Executive Guidance Council, thankfully, is at least 2/3 hard right conservatives, pro Kerry Lake, pro Donald Trump. And elsewhere in the party, we've got great division, as we always do, because the devil can't get it done just by occupying the blue team. he's got to be in the locker room when the red team is getting suited up as well. And he does fine work for the cause that he represents, which is destruction. And he's been at that for eternity past, but his time is short. So he's bigger, uglier, louder than ever before. And that's reflected in what looks like tremendous infighting. However, I've read the good book, and the good book ends with a final chapter in the book of Revelation, and it is revealed that the good guys win in the end. And to that regard, the Maricopa County Party chaplain, working together with other absolute saints, have inaugurated intercessory prayer groups in Maricopa County. We are into 14 of the 20 legislative districts with people designated as prayer warriors, because without God, we get nothing done. We've seen, I shared with you in that earlier interview at the commission, that by invoking his name, we've had the benefit of enormous blessing and progress, true progress for ratepayers and for the companies doing business and all the employees and the ancillary businesses that thrive as a result of that success. And we want that same thing. We need that same thing within the ranks of our Republican Party. So I'm happy to report the very first legislative district that kicked those prayer teams off was Legislative District 3, which is comprised of much of Scottsdale, Fountain Hills, Anthem, Cave Creek, Carefree, and all the way up into New River, believe it or not. We need a helicopter to get from one end of our district to the other. And kudos to the Dems here. They did it again. They took 2 Republican districts, combined them into one. So we now only have 1 Republican senator and 2 Republican House members rather than double that amount. Very, very great finessing on their part. They're long-term planners. I don't want to say we could take lessons from them, because God does not honor good people using the devil's tools to accomplish his goals.
I was going to say, it's been my general impression that Republicans are pretty good at messaging, but have really been bad at the mechanics of elections. Is that a fair assessment, or is that just a misimpression on my part?
No, I think you're right on. One of the great challenges that we're facing these days is, how do we bring out enough truth to the general public to get everybody, every voter in the county, every citizen in the county going to our Board of Supervisors and saying, stop with the nonsense, stop with the lawyers, stop with the courts. This day today, it's still America. You guys have been bungling. Forget cheating. Let's not use that word. Let's not use fraud, which in the legal profession, where the devil's guys work beautifully, all the lieutenant commanders are lawyers, right? And they'll represent every side. And they all love being the devil's advocate. Matter of fact, I'm looking for a Christ-following advocate in that profession. Tough to find, even in Republican ranks. But truly, the battle is a spiritual battle. And right now, we don't have enough men and women walking out their faith, whatever brand. I'm not talking about a denominational issue here. If you're a Jew who loves truth, you're my guy, you're my gal. If you're a Christ follower who loves truth, same way. It's indistinguishable to me. But who's living the truth? Who's walking the truth? Not who suits me, who feathers my bed, who serves my personal interest. It isn't all about me. And we've got too many people in our own party that as soon as they get elected chairman of a district, or into some leadership form. Get elected to the state house or the state senate. The attitude shifts from I'm here to serve to I'm here to be served. And that's where it's broken. So when we go to the leadership, elected leadership, and say, look, we all know there are problems with elections. I mean, when the county recorder puts up not sheetrock, but cardboard to cover the windows while their employees do the vote counting, that's the reverse of transparency. That's nonsense. But nobody, does the sheriff walk in and put handcuffs on the recorder and say, that game's over, dude? You don't get to do that. And until we have people bold enough to call them out right to their face, these treasonous, self-centered individuals currently holding high office throughout our land. This isn't just Maricopa County. This is nationwide. So we're at the pivot point right now where everybody I know that prays is on their knees, because without God, we get nothing done. With God, we drive the devil out and his serving minions with them, and we get our nation back, and we get our values back, and we get our children back. Enough is enough.
Well, I'll tell you, the debate could go on between those who think fraud occurred to those who think government just put its thumbs on the scale in coordination with a lot of people in private social media. But I mean, we're going to face all these issues this next election cycle, and why should I expect a different result?
Well, because we've got many praying and asking for divine intervention. So that's one reason of hope. But those who are praying are also filled with the power of God and will speak truth unto death. And I'm one of them. And I'm not going to stop.
Well, bully for you. I'm glad to hear that. One final question, for political baseball reasons, is what's the Senate race look like here in the state of Arizona?
I'm not trying to cop out on a reply, because often I have favorite candidates in many, many races. But this one is, from the Republican side, way too early to tell. My own belief is that Jim Layman won the Republican primary last year. I don't know whether people around him may have convinced him that, like so many others that go with, let's pretend this didn't happen, and 2 years later we'll do it better. Well, we did that. We pretended 2020 didn't happen, and 2 years later, look what we got: a Democrat takeover of the state. So I've seen too much of the evidence. I can't pretend. It was a good election. It was not.
It would seem, with Sinema running as an independent and the Democrats going to put up their guy or gal,
right,
that the Republicans have an unusual opportunity if they can get their act together.
On that note, and I don't know Senator Sinema, never had the opportunity to meet her, chat with her, but I have heard from many others whom I respect greatly that Kristen Sinema is a very, very smooth political operator. And taking that at face value, she's got a lot of support in the Republican business community, because she's brought home the bacon for them and they owe her. So we'll have a lot of Republicans writing her very big checks and doing fundraising parties for her, even though the bylaws of the party say that if you're a precinct committee person, you're not allowed to do that. You would lose your status as a precinct committeeman. But again, Republicans are, it's often referred to as herding cats. Each one has their own position, thought, and attitude, and the others will never convince them otherwise. So that will continue. So even if we get two other flavors on the Republican ticket, there probably would not be enough votes at this juncture to overcome, because within the Republican Party, and there are many of us that are trying to get the party together. I've been at that for only 18 years now, very unsuccessfully, I want to say, very, very unsuccessfully. And I've worked with good people on both sides of that aisle, and there are some fine and admirable people. But oil and water do not mix, and they don't mix because God designed it that way. And people who are after the truth versus people who are after what's in it for me, how do I benefit? Those are two different kind of people. You can't compromise that. And our front-running presidential nominee right now, God love the guy, but President Trump, often ill-advised, always of strong opinion, his own. And he came out a week or two ago with some statement on the life issue that he was going to negotiate a solution that everybody would love, but they'd love him, not the solution. He's got this view of, I've got the answer because I'm a great negotiator, and I read this or I wrote that. And with all due respect, the pro-life issue, there's a right and a wrong. It's a black and a white. There isn't a shade of gray on that table. There is no shade of gray. So all of the Christian coalition, as it were, that amassed around Trump, he put that in jeopardy with that statement. And you can't walk that back. His strong pro-life stance was the thing that earned him that incredible following that he amassed from the Christian community nationwide. I just pray he can lay low or something for the next few months and just, get the job back.
That was odd too, because, since the Dobbs decision, it's obviously now in the hands of the state legislature, and the federal government has relatively little to do with it. You wonder why he would put himself in jeopardy with that statement, because there's
precisely
not that much he's going to be able to bring to bear on it. Jim, as always, it's so great to chat with you. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and I must say your attitude is inspirational, and it gives me hope that we can get this country back on the right path. I look at some of these issues like the budget deficit, and I'd say to myself, conservatives have been arguing about this for 30 or 40 years, but we're really reaching a point where the snake is now swallowing his tail, where just simply the interest on the debt is going to be very difficult for the government to finance, and the quantity of bonds being sold by the government hard for the markets to absorb without sending interest rates higher and setting off a whole set of very negative feedback loops throughout the economy. And I'm very concerned.
And with good reason to be concerned. But again, we've got people running the government of the United States of America, because that financial issue is an American issue, not uniquely Arizona issue.
No.
Their intent is to take down the United States of America. And I have to say, from Obama forward, they've been doing a great job for whoever they work for. They've been doing a great job, because their job was to intentionally, what Obama's words, I think, were to transform America.
Yeah, fundamentally transform America.
Right. And they've done that. They've turned it into, even with Roe v. Wade reversed, we as a nation are accountable to our creator for allowing the death and destruction of 60 million human lives. And we don't bring God into anything anymore, but it was he himself who said in the scripture that I have knitted you together in your mother's womb. Is he interested? I'd say yes.
Jim, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.